Okay, Katey, I think you are good to go. We've got a pretty good group here.
All right, that was a wonderful little slideshow. Welcome to day 2 of our business boot camp. My name is Katey Carlson. I'm with Mega Western Sales. I'm also the membership director here at the ASID Orange County chapter. Before I announce our first speaker, I would like to encourage everybody to visit the website, the Bootcamp and Expo website, and visit all the links from the wonderful sponsors and companies that have put forth their products to showcase. Okay, you simply click and there's several uploaded videos and links to the website. We really appreciate that. Okay, so our first topic, we're going to start off with, am I ready for an office? Our speaker is Susan Thiel from Thiel Design. Thiel Design is a full-service boutique design studio in Newport Beach. Susan designs homes from concept to completion using the latest technology. She is a second-generation designer and holds degrees in interior design, business, as well as has a general contractor's license. Having a solid reputation for serving her clients with the concierge approach to design, she ensures success through educated design knowledge and valuable experience. Susan has designed more than 60 projects in luxury neighborhoods throughout Southern California. Her projects range in size from 2,000 to 30,000 square feet. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here and be asked to talk about this important subject. I know for me, I've always wanted an office outside of my home, and I've had quite a journey of different steps along the way, and I've had a lot of different experiences, and I'd love to share those with you. Am I able to share my screen?
You should be able to, yeah.
All right, so important question, should I get an office? And like I said before, it was really important for me personally to have an office outside of my home. And so in the last 12 years, I've kind of always been going through this search of finding the right space. And, you know, I've had several. So personally, I've done the home office. I also had a studio office, graduated to a much larger studio office. I've also had shared office space with 4 other designers sharing one big space. And now currently I'm in Studio 88. That is a co-working environment. Oops, sorry. What is that? Some of the important things that I've learned about those. Well, one, the home office. Yes, I've had the home office. And again, it's important for me to have that separation. And what I found having this home office is I had people coming to my home. Sales reps wanted to come to my home. I had overflowing, my garage was overflowing. My office was overflowing with tile and materials, and it was just a lot to manage. And I also couldn't separate myself. So it was like my office was always there at home. So I was really searching to find something else. Then my next step is I shared a space with 4 other designers. We shared cost. And with that, it was a lot of hearing other designers talk at the same time. And it was very difficult to really focus and be creative. Then I also went on to the studio office. I think it was 250 square feet. That was what I could afford at the moment. I had a 1-year lease. I started getting bigger jobs. I graduated to a much larger space, and that turned into a 3-year lease. And when I did that, I also, something to consider is I needed to purchase all the furniture. So I was purchasing conference tables, sofas, desk space, computers, because I had a couple assistants, all the storage. Luckily, I had a closet, so all the organizing, bookshelves, all that. So it was a bit of a financial commitment to furnish all those. I also had to get a copy machine that was able to do large print copiers, 11 by 17, etc. I needed a space large enough for a conference room. And like I said, space for staff, resources. And that was my experience there. And I think on my podcast with Rick Campos, I discussed kind of my transition, that I was really searching for a different space where I didn't have to support that whole space. You know, especially in our business, we kind of have upturns where business is like crazy, you can't take it all. And then there's lean times where you're just hoping to get that job to pay your bills, to pay for your office space. So I found Studio 88 actually through Instagram, and that was my transition. But also an important thing to consider is when I did have my office space and I had a beautiful office on my own, but as my clients entered the building, you know, it was decorated in 1970, 1980. And so the management did not upgrade the lobby. They didn't upgrade any of the furnishings. So as my clients entered the space, it was I just knew it wasn't quite the impression I wanted them to have, to kind of, you know, they stepped in the lobby, they went up the stairs, they saw this sitting area that was really dated, and then they came into my office. So it was a kind of strange impression that I thought, and I wasn't exactly in a situation where I was going to pay to refurnish the lobby or do anything like that. So that was another thing that was really important to me and something to consider. So hold on one sec. So that kind of led to my transition to going to Studio 88, which is a co-working environment. And that's where I am today. And I think it's a really great fit for me. And I think it'd be a great fit for a lot of designers, just for the fact that it's very flexible. You know, I started out just renting a desk because I wasn't quite sure, you know, how my jobs were going and what really, if I liked the space, what I wanted, if I wanted to stay. And then I transitioned into a closed office. So I have space for an assistant, possibly another assistant, and it really works for me. So some of the things that are really helpful to me and why this space works pretty well for me is that it's month to month. So I really don't have to stress about, wow, 3 years. That was a big lease. That was a big commitment. And I have, you know, in our business, who knows what, especially with the economy, who knows what's going on. And so that was kind of a nice stress relief. Also the support staff. If I need CAD, it's available. If I need other assistance, it's available. I mean, they also have purchasing. So sometimes I do the purchasing. Sometimes I have Studio 88 staff do the purchasing. So it's very flexible. You know, the conference rooms, I've had client meetings in here. I have a huge screen. I don't know if I can't transition or move you around, but I'm in this beautiful conference room, I have a large screen, I have this great owl for Zoom meetings like this. And my clients come in here, it's a beautiful environment, they're impressed, they're like, this is professional, you know, this is a beautiful professional environment. And that's really an important experience I want my clients to have as well. And then again, product presentations. So, I mean, the beauty of it is sales reps come in here for multiple different lines of products for commercial, residential, and probably a lot more products are coming through and presenting in Studio 88 than I would have in my own personal office. So I feel that I'm exposed to a lot more product knowledge, which I think helps me as a designer become a better designer. Also, I've gotten mentoring from Chris, the owner of Studio 88. And I've gotten leads. I've gotten 2 huge leads or huge projects from just being here. You know, somebody else, another designer has too much work and they need somebody else. Does anybody else can take the job on? So that's huge. And also just being inspired as I walk in and I come down to my office, you know, everybody's working on different projects. It's super cool to see this is what's going on in model homes, or this is what this designer is working on here in commercial, or just kind of the inspired environment of having a lot of, it's exclusive to designers. So that's just, you know, it's a great environment. And again, I think I mentioned before, just the client impression makes a big difference, because I could see on my clients' faces they went through that 1980s lobby versus when they come into this space. So I think it's pretty important. But, you know, not every designer is ready to make the financial commitment to an office. And I think that's important. I think it's important just to assess, you know, what you want from your design business. Do you want it at home? Do you want to just, or do you want to take it to another level and just have that separation from home and also have that professional vibe, I guess, to your clients? So I think that's overall is my experience. I'm happy to answer any questions or give any more details about what I've experienced, but that pretty much sums it up, and you know, why I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now. And I have no desire to have a 3-year lease ever again. So, but anyway, that's about it. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to share my experience.
Thank you, Susan. Casey, can we stop sharing the screen so we can see everybody? Anybody have any questions for Susan? Okay. Do you? Okay, there are a couple quick questions for Susan. We can answer them quickly in the chat. First one's from Erica. And Susan, do you collaborate with other designers at Studio 88?
As far as working on my project, no, I think we're pretty separate. I mean, our own businesses, I haven't had that collaboration. I collaborate with my team, but I think more what my experience has been is kind of mentor. Hey, how do you run your business? Maybe not necessarily on the design side. Or I've asked, hey, have you used this material before? If that's what you mean by collaboration, yeah, of course. I've asked, you know, is this a good product? Or have you used this paint plaster before, this company? So those are things that definitely we bounce around.
Thank you. And then the next question is, can you give us a general cost for a private space?
So for me personally, when I had my own open desk, I didn't have a closed room, it was $900 a month. I know that they have other memberships that you can buy per day, or, you know, maybe you only need an office when you have client presentations. I think they offer that. I don't know exactly every pricing ladder, but I think you can go to the website and see there's a lot of different options. So, but my desk space, when I had a pretty nice sized desk, I had file storage, I had upper cabinets for, you know, my project books and materials and things like that. So I had a pretty good amount of space. It was $900. When I transitioned to the next office, it is $1,500. And so I have space for my assistant, and I have tons of space for files and project binders, samples, etc. And I think, you know, another important thing is the resource library. So I don't need to store all the tile in my office. So they have reps, they have Arizona tile, Dell tile, Caesar stone, Marvelous. I mean, all the major vendors have spaces in their resource library that you can pull from. So you don't need to store all that. So that's kind of cool.
Wonderful. Thank you. We need to move to our next topic. There is another question in chat. I don't know if you're able to see that. Maybe you can just answer that in the chat for her, Susan.
Where can I? I'll have to figure out where the chat is. But
on the bottom, if you hover down below, it says chat.
Oh, here. Okay.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Answer that question. No problem.
Thank you. So our next topic is hiring that first employee, and our next speaker is Michaelsen Yahn. Hopefully I said that correctly. And Michelson launched Michelsen Design in 1988 in Los Angeles as a way to express her creativity and meld her love of art, history, architecture, and design. Her business flourished due to her classical education to the humanities and arts, as well as her more theatrical and practical training in architecture, design, and construction. These attributes, along with her hands-on involvement and understanding of construction, account for over 3 decades of successful projects. Welcome, Ann.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I was thinking about this, and I think my talk is really going to focus on, like I was asked to speak on, hiring your first employee. And I'm going to contrast that with, for example, that is not your 5th or your 10th, right? It's your first employee. And I think that it's really important to remember that hiring is about people, clarity, and emotions, and it's really exciting. If you're hiring someone, you need to acknowledge that you've brought your business far and you're ready to move to the next level. So the most important thing to do is to reconnect with why you started your business and the vision to where you want to take it, and think about the values that you represent and make sure that your hires are going to help you reach those goals. Hire who will help take you to the next level. I'm going to divide my presentation into 3 parts. The first being before you hire. It's really important to take some time during this period to set up your systems and to analyze why you're hiring and what you're looking for. The second is how to hire, getting the word out and the selection process. And the third is after you hire, how to manage and retain your hire. So firstly, sometimes kind of the boring part of it, but it's stuff that when I started 30 whatever years ago, didn't know anything about. But you should prepare yourself with the legal and tax matters that involve being an employer. You should have an accountant, a bookkeeper, and some legal advice. Maybe it's just an hour of time, but you should talk to them to make sure you're set up correctly. You need an EIN number, which is like the Social Security for business, an employee payroll tax account number, an EDD, and be prepared to withhold taxes, both federally and state, and know what those are. And that's where your accountant and bookkeeper can help you. And by the way, just know you need to keep your records for 6 years after you do this. Get really clear on, as a CEO, the head of your company, how you operate, what your expectations, your neuroses, and how you really work. Do the strategy work, what you need, why you need it, who you're looking for, and that you should expect all your needs to be ironed out before you finalize that job description. So really do some work. So then you want to structure the position. So you've thought about what you need, you've set yourself up to be an employer. And what is it you need help with? Is it office work, design work, meaning CAD and SketchUp, tracking, marketing, administration, and sort of make a list of those skills. And what in those skills you don't want to do that you know you can pass on to other people, and how you want them to do it. Then analyze what type of background, skill set, and experience this person will need to provide you with that support. Do they need to be college educated, design educated, technical skills, communication skills? I think interpersonal skills and ability to relate your clients is super important. You know who your clients are, and you need an employee that will be able to relate to them. And perhaps most importantly, a personality that fits with yours. If this is your first hire and your only hire, The two of you need to work well together, get along well together, understand each other. I think it's super important during the hiring process, don't sugarcoat the role or your expectations. Make the job sound as difficult as possible so that the person who takes it is willing to do the work. Don't undersell what it is you expect. The third thing, or C, analyze how many hours and days a week you need and how much you're willing to pay them and how you're going to pay them. So when I started out, I always had independent contractors. Now in California, that's really difficult. So you might want to have part-time employees as opposed to independent contractors. And then keep them under 30 hours a week to avoid a lot of the full-time employment laws that you might not yet be ready to give your employees. So now that you've thought about all that, you can create your job description, which is a written out list of what you're looking for, what it will take to do that job effectively, how many hours it will be, and what they'll get paid to do it. You have that, and now you're ready to hire. You can post that job description on LinkedIn, which I just did today for a new hire, Indeed, and lots of the other sites that are out there. I think I also just am doing the Instagram story that I'm hiring. I've noticed a lot of designers do that. That might be an effective way for people who already follow you and know your work to know that you're looking. So now you're going to get some resumes and you're in the selection process. You're going to review those resumes and applications, get yourself down to a handful and conduct interviews. I would suggest doing telephone interviews at first, and then get down to maybe 3 you want to interview in person or Zoom. Which time you'll be able to review their portfolios. And if you like all of that, either before you interview them in person or after you think you've found the fit, I like to give a little assignment. So for example, if you're looking for somebody who can do CAD, get a typical project you might ask an employee to do and ask them to do it. And I think this is super important, especially when hiring someone out of design school, because I found that often those candidates know how to do their school projects, but aren't able to do even really simple projects that I hand them. So I've started always asking for a little project so that I can see how they work and how quickly they do it, how resourceful they are. A lot of people recommend having a third party review some of your final candidates to make sure that you're not biased by your own, personality, etc. That's not a bad thing to try. So now you've gotten down to maybe your first and second candidate, you make the job offer and they accept it. So now you need to be prepared. Now, again, especially in California, you need to make sure that they're legal to work in California and the United States. So that's something that your legal team or accountant can help you fill out those forms. And choose a payroll method. Because we do need to withhold all these taxes, I highly recommend you don't try to bring all that on yourself. There's so many easy platforms now. I personally use Gusto, and I have to tell you, it is so simple to set up and to use. It does all that work for you, pays, withholds tax, all that kind of stuff. Then I think maybe the most important part of all of it is your plan for reviews and retainment. And so you want to set a timetable for reviews, and I would do those more often at the beginning, like, maybe it's the end of the day, the first week, and then it's weekly, and then you can move to 6 months and then yearly, so that you're really communicating with this person and making sure that you are meeting each other's expectations, not just your expectations of them, but their expectations of you as a leader. Make sure you offer room for growth so that the employee feels that they are expanding their role. And I think that's how you have long-term employees. My best assistant had no design experience when I hired her, but she was smart and she's still with me today, and I'm promoting her to like assistant designer and bringing in someone under her. So room for growth is really, really important. And then you should have an onboarding process, and you know, you can do some of that work before this first hire, and then maybe through the process of this first hire, start writing your standard operating procedures for hiring as you go, so that when you get ready to hire your second employee or your third employee, you already sort of have sort of your plan of how you do that. Start building an employee manual, training periods, how you handle that. And then I think you're going to have a lot of success with your first hire, and then hopefully as you grow, more and more hires. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
I think
Oh, I see a question. Have you ever hired someone as an independent contractor? Someone who does CAD? Yes. And that would absolutely qualify. So you can hire outside resources, right? They're not working in your office. They're not working on your hours. They run their own business, and you're hiring them as just like you would an accountant or, you know, a lawyer. You can hire CAD for outside services. What you can't do anymore is what I used to do, which is my design assistants for independent contractors. I now have them all our employees.
wonderful. Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. If there's any more questions, can you put them in chat? And Anne, you'll mind answering them so we can.
Of course.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Our next area, our topic is insurance, and we have with us Jane Parmenter. She is the owner of Parmenter Insurance Agency and has been since 1995. Jane is originally from South Wales, Great Britain, and moved to California in 1985, where she worked for 10 years as a project manager for a Herman Miller dealership. She joined Parmenter Insurance Agency in 1995 to work alongside her now late husband, Pete Parmenter. Jane specializes in commercial insurance and is proud to work with both of her adult children, Bethan, hopefully I'm saying that right, Bethan, who runs the personal insurance division, and Bryn Moore, who just started in March working in the commercial insurance division. Did I say that right? Personal.
Yeah, you did. Thank you very much. Yeah, you said them both perfectly, Bethan and Bryn Moore. Can you all hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Great. Okay. So yeah, I'm Jane Parmenter. I am going to share my screen and talk a little about insurance and what you need to look at if, hold on one second, just need to start the slideshow here. Oops. Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm Jane Parmenter, Parmenter Insurance. I do commercial lines insurance. We also do personal lines too, so home and auto, but I specialize in commercial insurance. And there is so much to know about commercial insurance. And I think often people think about it when they're moving into an office space because a landlord is looking for that insurance, or if they're working with a homeowner or on the commercial side, when someone says we need to see proof of insurance. So there's questions, when do I need insurance? When should I start insurance? And really, what does it cover? So whether you specialize in residential, commercial, or outdoor spaces, the business, your business can expose you personally as having a claim filed against your business and the business. So the main types of insurance that everybody seems to know of is commercial general liability. So this will protect your business against claims of bodily injury and property damage. So if you're on site and someone gets injured because of something that you've left on that property, and they come back and sue you, or there is property damage from something that you have done on site again, that's what the commercial general liability would cover you for. On commercial property, which is usually added to the general liability, you add equipment, tools, and inventory. And if you own your office building, then you would insure that office building too. Added to the general liability is business income. So say something happens in your office and you are unable to work, then the business income would help provide that. But it has to be a covered risk that's covered under that general liability. So for example, there's a fire in your office that makes you unable to work. So that's where that would come in. It's not a disability. It's not if you are physically injured. What commercial insurance does not cover is your own work. So I recently had this where I had, it was a contractor at the end of a job. He had one of his employees cleaning all of the windows that had been installed, and they scratched them all. It was at the beach, sand got onto something and it put scratches in all the windows. That was their own work. They were doing something of completion work there. That was not covered under the commercial general liability. It was covered under the errors and omission. And so on your commercial general liability policy, you always want to make sure that you have the errors and omissions added in there. And errors and omissions also covers contractual issues too. So I'll get into that a little bit more as well. So other things that you may want to look at is cyber insurance, electronic data, and hired and non-owned auto. So if your email is hacked and your work is destroyed or corrupted, cyber insurance will help restoring your computer. Now, on most business owners' policies, they're called BOPs, there is cyber and electronic data added to those policies. If there's a fire in your office, electronic data coverage would cover important paperwork. As far as hired and non-owned auto, so if you have employees and they're traveling to clients' homes or offices and there is an accident and your employee is at fault, the hired and non-owned auto will protect the business if an attorney were looking for deep pockets. So say your employee has lower coverages or it's a big accident and it's on their personal vehicle, the other person gets an attorney involved, and they then find out that they were on a job and going to a job place for your business, the attorney can then sue your business. So hired and non-owned would protect that. Also, if you have commercial vehicles, and I don't know too many designers that would have a large enough commercial vehicle, you can do commercial auto, which has higher limits. But again, that is usually if you've got a truck for deliveries. Workers' comp. So we were talking a little bit about this before with hiring your new employees or any employees. It used to be that you could have as an employee on a 1099, but these rules changed. It's now called an ABC rule. And you have to verify that your employees, if you do not want to put them on a workers' comp, are not under your instruction. And they are doing work that you do not do. So you don't do CAD and you hire someone to do CAD. You don't necessarily have to have workers' comp for them. But if you're in an office and you have someone coming in every day and they're helping you with any design work, phone calls, billing, any of that office work, you need to have a workers' comp policy. The state is really cracking down on that. They are looking for companies that don't have workers' comp. Luckily, design work, because most of it is considered clerical, so it is a really low rate for workers' comp, which is good. An example of workers' comp, if you have an employee out, they're hanging something, they're putting something up, and they hurt themselves, and that could be under a workers' comp claim. And again, if they get injured and that employee decides that they want to put it in as a workers' comp claim and you don't have it, the state can come after you. And the fines can be very big, up to $10,000. So it's worth talking to your current broker if you don't have that, and to find out whether any employees fall, what rule they fall under the ABC rule for workers' comp. As far as hiring contractors and engineers, your clients should be hiring and paying any contractors, including engineers and architects, unless you have a contractor's license and are verified all contractors have insurance and listed you as additional insured. This is like a huge issue. If you are hiring those contractors, essentially we could be going back to some of the workers' comp stuff, and there are a lot of blurred lines, and there's blurred lines with the liability too. So my suggestion would be to always have your client pay the contractors directly. And so you are taken out of the loop of any issues that could arise from any damages or claims. And then we come to designers versus decorators. So most carriers will write a policy, most standard policies will be written for a decorator, not a designer. Distinction is in the risk associated with both. A decorator would be someone who has no involvement with plans, architects, or permits. A stager maybe could be considered a decorator. A designer has higher risk exposure due to the involvement with building plans, contractors, etc. Now, even if your client is doing all of that hiring themselves, you should make sure that the classification on your current policy is under designer. So it's pretty easy to do. If you have current insurance policy, just look at it and there should be a line in there that's listed on the declarations page as classification. And if you have questions, I'm here to answer them. The next question is, who owns the furniture? Are you buying furniture for your client and storing it in a warehouse before delivery? Who then owns that furniture? Do you own it because you bought it? Does the client own it because technically it's theirs? Or is it at the warehouse? Is it covered by the warehouse? So a lot of warehouse companies will have insurance for anything that they store. But that is also something worth looking into. And if you hire an independent company to do all your installations, please verify that they have insurance and they add you as an additional insured. So what that means, if there is any type of accident and someone thinks they're going to sue you, they will actually end up, and it's due to the delivery, it would all go on that delivery company's liability, not yours. So it kind of takes you out of the loop. Homeowners usually or should be asking for you to be added as an additional insured. That way, again, your insurance would come into play when you're working at their house. If you have questions, if you're going down the rabbit hole, because insurance can be never ending, right? I mean, it's just like, well, what if this happened and this happened and that happened? Please reach out to me. My email is in here. I can put it in the chat too. And my office phone is 949-829-0516. I am based in Mission Viejo. I don't charge for consults on insurance and I don't charge on brokerage. So if you have a question, don't think they're going to get charged anything. I would not. There's no charge on that. I have been a broker for 25 years. I've owned Parmenter Insurance Agency for that full 25 years. So I have been doing this quite a while. And I work with quite a few designers. And that's kind of it. That's my presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We actually do have a few minutes. If there are any quick questions right now, please put them in chat. And I'm sure Jan will be happy to answer them.
Okay, I'm trying to get myself. Oh, here we go. Stop share.
Yeah.
There we
have
go.
A few minutes.
Great. I know. I kind of rushed through that.
You did a great job getting us back on time.
I could talk all day, so I have to.
We could probably
okay.
look all day because you have a beautiful accent. You
know. Oh, thank you so much. It's kind of morphed into something strange. So I didn't see any questions. Did anybody have anything?
Well, there we go. There's
Okay.
a, got an S corp?
Okay, as far as incorporated, as far as your insurance, or is that what the question was?
Yeah, and she's asking, she's incorporated with an S corp.
Yeah,
Of the advantages to being incorporated.
as far as your insurance, the named insured is the company. In that case, it's not you as an individual. So if something were to happen and someone were to sue, they're suing the company, not you personally. Because the first named insured on the policy is the person that anyone would sue. So you would have the corporation as the first named insured.
Are there any other questions? All right, I think we're great. Well, thank you so much. It's very
You're
informative.
very welcome. You're very welcome. And, let me put my info in the chat. So if
Yes.
anybody has any questions
That'd be
to,
wonderful. I was just going to suggest that.
okay.
Well, I see we have our next speakers here. We're going to talk about outsourcing. We have Jessica Jones of Jessica Jones Design Group and Dalia Solis of Design Assisted. Jessica Jones is an allied ASID designer and the principal designer for her boutique design firm, Jess Jones Design Group. After graduating from Interior Design Institute in Newport Beach in 2004 with her degree in interior design, Jessica joined PC & Company Designs in Newport Beach, California. In 2016, Jessica was a recipient of the ASID Orange County Great Room Gold Award for Excellence in Interior Design. Jessica is currently the American Society of Interior Designers, ASID, Orange County President-elect for 2020-2021, and a member of NKBA. She loves being a part of the Orange County design community, volunteering and giving back. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Katey. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. And with her, we have Dalia Solis. Saying that right, correct? Solis?
Souls.
Solis, it is. Yep. Jessica, you led me down the wrong path.
Sorry.
No worries.
Solis is the founder of Design Assisted, a virtual interior design project management company located in Palm Beach, Florida. She has experience working in the interior design industry in luxury markets alongside contractors, architects, and celebrities. We'll pick that back up later about any stories you may have to share about that. Dalia built Design Assisted at the height of the 2020 pandemic and has grown from a team of 1 to a team of 9 project managers and drafters. After 1 year in business, her team has assisted over 40 interior designers. And as a Latina woman in business, a wife and mother, Dalia is passionate about creating opportunities for women and minorities. Thank you so much for being with us, and take it away, ladies.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Katey. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Dalia, for partnering with me on this. And I'm really excited to share our experience with outsourcing and share it with everyone. So thank you for joining me today. And we'd like to expand on just more about the outsourcing and how it's changing the way we do business in the interior design industry.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm actually not in Florida right now. I'm on vacation in Savannah with my family. So I just kicked everyone out, told them to go to the pool so we can talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Dalia, I've been working with your company now for a little bit over a year, Design Assisted, and you and your team have helped me immensely with my projects. Can you share with me and the conference an overview of your company and what you can offer to designers?
Absolutely. Design Assisted is a project management company for interior designers. So we work alongside designers all over the country, remotely, of course, and we help them with tasks such as sourcing, proposals, procurement, and tracking. We also draw 2D plans, elevations, 3D renderings. We create digital mood boards. All of our services are offered on an as-needed basis. So whether you're a team of 1 or 10, or our experienced assistants are equipped to jump in and assist at any point of your project. And we've really enjoyed working with you, Jessica, on your project in South Florida. Most of our clients are out of state, so it's always great to get to see the project in person.
Absolutely. It's been so helpful to have Dalia and her team on my South Florida project, but also on my projects here in Southern California. I've had her outsource CAD, mood boards, some of the purchasing, sourcing, just overall help, social media, just multiple different things. Whenever I just kind of feel the stress of being a one gal, design firm right now, it's really, really helped me facilitate and keep my business running very professionally.
And that's exactly why I created Design Assisted for designers just like you, whose workload has grown immensely. And we've been able to help many designers scale their businesses in the past year, just by assisting them with all the tasks that, let's face it, you did not get into this industry to perform.
That's right. A few of our clients are currently on summer vacations. Oh, sorry. You're right. I did it. One of my most favorite features about working with Design Assistant has been the flexibility of taking time off or pivoting to handle another project while your team completes tasks that are billable back to my clients. I know that my clients are in good hands and I'm able to scale my business and focus on design at the same time.
Yep, exactly. So you can take time off if you need to go on vacation or be with your family. That happens quite often with the designers that we work with. A few of them are out of town currently. And, while they're out and enjoying much needed time off, then they know that, we're behind the scenes moving forward, we're tracking orders. I really, truly believe that outsourcing is the secret to having a better work-life balance.
100%. That is really so important. It helps us do our jobs better, or we're not constantly worrying about every little detail in our projects. What is something that a designer should know or have in place before working with your company or any virtual design assistant out there?
Really just making sure that you have a process in place for your projects. And if you don't, which some designers don't, we kind of jump in and we're like, oh, we're good at design. Let's do this. Make sure that the assistant that you do hire has a process and a knowledge of design software, whether it's Studio Designer, Design Files, House Pro, whichever program works for you, even if it's just Excel or Google Sheets. The person that's assisting you should be organized and have a clear understanding of what their role is and what you want them to focus on, whether it's proposals, procurements, mood boards. Also, the more organized your business is, the easier it will be to outsource. We work with a spectacular company called Jackson Willow, and they help interior designers set their businesses up for success before even working with a design assistant. And then, people can go to them, have conversations with them, and then they send them right back to us. So I highly recommend going that route if you don't know where to begin, really.
I can't tell you that after the 2020 pandemic, or during the 2020 pandemic, when I had to let my staff go because I was uncertain where my business was going, and I just happened to stumble upon Dalia on a Facebook interior design group, it changed the way I run my business to now where I outsource Dalia with Dalia's company, multiple things. I also outsource my bookkeeper, and she's in Arizona. I outsource some of my construction docs and my big CAD plans with a CAD designer that's local, that knows the California building codes and such, that helps me out. So it's really helped me stay in a very comfortable position, not having to grow too fast to where I can make the right decisions for my company. Another thing I outsourced in the beginning, or I should say about 2 years into my business, owning my firm, is a business coach. We're all out there. We're not the business savvy people. We didn't go to college to run businesses. We are creatives. So I've just learned that outsourcing to people that know things better than I do have really, really helped, me gain also those strengths with the strengths that I already have. So it's been it's been a game changer for myself, and working with Dalia and seeing her team grow and the capabilities that they continue to add on to their scope of work has really helped me and inspired me as well. And to see how well she's growing, just also that all designers out there know that there's help out there. You don't have to hire the staff and have the insurance and pay the taxes, that you could outsource these kind of people and you still have your design assistant. And the other avenue I feel like in outsourcing is not necessarily an outsource, but just having an intern, because they're not on your payroll and they can do a lot of the running around and filing and things that you need done, like in an office in person. So
agreed. Yeah, when I started Design Assisted, I started with an intern, someone that had worked with me at a firm previously. And then she graduated college and, she had all this experience in the design world, and I snatched her up really quick. But, every once in a while, I'll reach out to the local college and I'll ask them if they have anyone that, wants to learn, because essentially, if someone wants to get into design, they have to understand the back end first if they're going to go work at a firm. Not a lot of people are just going to graduate college and then start working as a designer. Or they do, and then they kind of learn the hard way that there's a lot of stuff happening in the back end that you really need to be cognizant of. So I wholeheartedly agree. An intern is a great way to go to get some help.
Yeah, I agree. But it's scary at times, just taking on that first person. I remember when I first hired my first office manager, and it was part-time, and it was excellent to have, but you always had to guarantee those hours. And one of the things that I've loved working with a lot of my outsourcing is that there's no guarantees. You kind of can buy a package, or it could be by the hourly or just as needed. So I didn't have to have a large overhead. And that was really important to me, just knowing how uncertain all of our times are. Unfortunately, we've been very, very busy and flourishing in our industry through all this craziness, but it just really helped to make that decision for me.
Exactly. And, when I was working at a design firm, again, the whole reason why I started Design Assisted was because oftentimes I would need just one extra person to add something to a proposal, to source an item, to return something to a store, to talk to a vendor, just, those little things that really add up over time. It takes up a lot of your time, and you just need one extra person. Sometimes an intern just won't cut it because you have to teach them anyway. So a lot of times it feels like, well, I could have just done that on my own anyway. With Design Assisted, you call us, we know exactly what you're talking about. We have experience in the industry. There may be minimal training, minimal explanation. We like to do everything over email or through a project management program so that there is zero miscommunication anywhere. And it's really easy. You just send out the request, we get it done for you, and it works nicely.
Agreed. And one thing I just want to say is, like, in the beginning, I was scared, like, how do I pass on this work? How do I delegate this work to someone that's all the way in Florida? And then we just kind of dove in because she knew what a COM was. She knew the terminology. She knew everything about the design industry on the back end and the front end, because she's worked for many firms and she's been in all different aspects. So I didn't have to explain all of our special terminology that we use on a daily basis. And she was able to dive in and knew exactly how to talk to my vendors and suppliers and help me out with that. So that was really, really, really important, like you said, because it's so hard to sometimes take the time to teach someone all of those ins and outs of how we, just how we've learned through the years how to run our businesses and how to be a designer.
For sure. It really can be like learning a completely new language. And I will say, the difference between hiring an interior design project manager or an interior design virtual design assistant versus getting just a regular virtual assistant who knows administrative work, it just comes down to not having to explain certain things that we know in our industry, that, someone with a lot of secretarial experience could come in and they would learn it over time, but there's definitely a learning curve and you have to teach them the ins and outs. And we like to just jump in and get it done.
Right. Well, even just with our showrooms, our manufacturers that, you're familiar with the fabric companies, the furniture companies, all of that. So it's not like I'm like, okay, so Pindler & Pindler is a fabric company, you know what I mean? So that's always been really nice that again, there was not that communication breakdown.
Yes, exactly. We know all of those vendors, we know all of the manufacturers. And if we don't, we're just going to ask you, if you're in California, you have a specific vendor that you use that we're just not familiar with. Obviously, we'll reach out. But at least we know, I'd say, 99% of what you're talking about most of the time.
Right. Well, this has been so great, Dalia. I'm so fortunate to work with you on a daily basis and have you talk about your company and just outsourcing in general with our group today. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
And I wanted to see if anyone had any questions for Dalia or myself. There is one question. What are the liabilities of hiring an intern, auto insurance, etc.? And honestly, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I have not run into any issues with my interns. It's usually only been for a couple of hours here or there, or like once a week. And so I've never had interns that have asked me for liability insurance or anything like that personally. So I can't answer that.
So I think I mean, I'm not an insurance expert, but I think it depends on if they're working remotely. If you're having them go in to a project physically, then yes, you need to have liability insurance. In terms of liability, if they're working on a project and they ordered the wrong color fabric, I generally make everyone sign an independent contractor agreement, and it lays everything out. For us personally, for design assisted, if we make a mistake, we will pay for it out of pocket. For an independent person, I guess I don't know, that would just be at your discretion how you would want to handle that.
Right, agreed. Okay, does anyone else have any questions regarding outsourcing and what it can bring to your business? And how I personally think it's going to change how a lot of people run their offices. I think through 2020, we've all learned that we can downscale and still be very, very productive and successful and not have to have so much overhead. Okay, well, thanks everyone. I appreciate it. This was awesome.
Thank you so much, ladies. It was awesome. Wait, there's a question that just popped up about using Studio Designer, but has not found an assistant that knows it.
Okay, great question. So when I first hired my office manager, she had to train with Studio Designer because that's the software that I used. I've used it for 5 years now. Dalia is educated in that, so she was able to go right back into my back office and know how to put together POs, help me with my invoicing, you name it, she's helped with it. I also know that if you go to Studio Designer, you can ask them for referrals. They do have people that work all over the United States that you can hire to help with bookkeeping or any back-end work. And then I just started to ask around, but I also, like with my business coach, she's an interior design business coach. Her name is Julie Malloy, and she actually had training manuals for Studio Designer software. So, there's people out there that are educated, that are willing, that you'd have to possibly hire to help educate your staff. But it's definitely, to have someone be familiar with your actual design software is key. Because I didn't have to teach Dalia or my bookkeeper. They both knew my Studio Designer software because it's one of the leading softwares out there for the interior design world. So it's one of the more familiar ones.
And would you actually offer design assistant training services? And it's not really specific to Studio Designer or House, but we have a process that we put together from when your discovery call starts until the installation date, and then past that to closing out the project. So, you can give us a call, you can email me, and we can have a Zoom call with your assistant, go over your process, learn what your process is, and then train her through it step by step, as well as, go through the nuances of Studio. There's so many new processes that have been added to the Studio update. So we're still learning some of those updates as well. But, when you use one, you've kind of used them all. They're all pretty similar.
Wonderful. So Dalia, would you mind putting your contact information in the chat?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be wonderful. So much great information, and what a great segue into our next topic, which just happens to be Studio Designer.
Woohoo.
Wonderful, thank you. So with us, we now have Christine Wilson to talk about Studio Designer, as she is the Director of Sales for Studio Designer. Studio Designer is the leading digital project management, project sourcing, and accounting platform for the interior design industry. Prior to her sales position for the past 24 years, Christine worked at one of the first high-end interior design firms that implemented Studio Designer, and at its inception over 30 years ago. Christine currently resides in Denver, Colorado. So welcome, Christine.
Hi there, how are you?
Wonderful. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Christine, I have your video ready. Would you like me to play that now and then we'll come back to you?
Sure, that would be great if you could play that first, and then I'll do a brief demo after that.
Sounds great. Can everyone see the screen? Okay, hope everyone got that. Was there no sound?
There was no sound.
Oh no. Okay. I'm not sure why. Let me try something else. Hold on. No. I'm gonna try that one more time. Sharing sound this time. Do we have sound this time?
Many people think interior design is all about creating beauty, and it is, but it's so much more. It's about running a successful business. Our vision at Studio Designer is to empower creativity. The better your business is run, the more creativity you get to exercise. Whether you're in the early years of your interior design career or have been in the industry for 30 years, like I have, Studio Designer is the best solution to run your business successfully.
Studio Designer provides all the tools you'll need today to become the firm you want to be tomorrow. Our fully integrated platform features an all-in-one project management system, client collaboration portal, product sourcing tools, and designer-specific accounting software. We enable designers to streamline their business, increase profitability, all while managing beautiful projects. Here's what a few of our customers say about Studio Designer. From Tom Stringer of Tom Stringer Design Partners. Studio Designer gives us the state-of-the-art tools with which to run our business and allows us to focus on the creative endeavors that move us forward. There is no more powerful tool for interior designers today. From Chris Barrett of Chris Barrett Design. Studio Designer provides incredibly powerful tools for my interior design business. From Kristen Nye Nicholas and Tammy Ramsey of Cloth & Kind. We decided early on that we wanted to go all in with Studio Designer, and we're so thrilled that we did. We use it not only for our back-end accounting, but for our project management as well. Studio Designer is integral to the success of our design work, and simply put, we couldn't do what we do without it.
For my entire 30-plus year career, I have always been passionate about elevating the business of design. Having the right foundation for your business operations and financials is essential for success in this industry. At Studio Designer, we want to enable designers to focus on the things that they do best, creating beautiful, inspirational places for people to live, work, and entertain. We create solutions to make dealing with paperwork, financial, and project management more efficient. Let us empower your creativity by helping you run your business of design faster, easier, and smarter.
Okay, Christine, I think that one worked.
Yes, I think it did. So can you see my screen okay now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yay. Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Wilson, the Director of Sales for Studio Designer. I'm excited to present Studio Designer to you today. As the video you just viewed described, Studio is a project management and accounting platform specifically designed for interior designers. What you are currently viewing here is the dashboard of Studio Designer. This is what designers see when they log into the program. The dashboard gives me just a quick overview of recent items that I can see that I've entered for different projects. I can also see my activity list, which is kind of my to-do list and reminders and follow-up, etc. And you will also notice on the left side of the screen here, in this darker gray navigation bar, is basically where we are doing all of our different day-to-day tasks within the program. So notice when I select projects here on the left, you will see that a sub-menu displays with additional options for me to choose from. So the first thing that I would like to mention today is setting up the address book. This is important. You can set up either client names or vendor names, but for the purpose of today's demo, I'm going to select miscellaneous addresses. And this is my entire address book. This is all of the clients that I've set up, all of the vendors, anyone that I've entered in my address book is listed here. And the whole idea here is the more information we can set up initially at the address level, as far as default information for our clients and our vendors, the better off we are down the road. So you can set up your sales tax rates and your default markup percentage and things like that. So when you begin entering items for a project, those things will default in for you automatically. So you don't have to type them every time you create a new item for a project. And you will also notice here at the top of the screen, we have different filters. And I could select to filter just on my client addresses only here. And now you will notice my list below has just changed to only client type addresses. And you will notice these filters throughout all of the screens in Studio Designer. So going back to projects here on the left, this time I'm going to select items. And this is really the heart and soul of Studio Designer. This is typically where most designers are going to spend their time in the program. This is where we are entering typically items of furnishings and merchandise, where we can then generate proposals and purchase orders and invoices. We can also generate requests for quotes to get pricing from our vendors. And if you're doing hospitality or commercial work, you can generate spec sheets. So, and also notice here on the top right side of the screen, there's a view filter. You can view your list of items in different ways, depending on what your preference is. Notice I have my view set to the items list format here, but some designers prefer viewing their items in the detailed format. So here's our same list of items. And also notice here at the top, I have filtered for the Andrews project here. So it's only displaying items that I've entered so far for the Andrews project. So you can really toggle back between whatever view you prefer here. We also have a view for expediting dates. So as things are happening with your items, you can update certain dates, which is great for tracking purposes. And then you can see these dates on the screen as far as estimated ship date, what's been shipped, received, and so on. And then you can also generate reports based on these dates under our report section here at the bottom right side or bottom left side of the screen. So there's many different ways that you can view information for your project by using this view drop down here. One of the great features that we offer with Studio Designer is what we call Studio Capture. And what that is, it allows you to go to manufacturer websites or vendor websites and grab the product details and download that right into the program to create new items for you. So let me show you how that works. I'm going out to Holly Hunt's website, for example, and let's say that I would like to propose this lounge chair to my client. So basically, we have a little tool called Studio Capture that you would put on your favorites bar, and then this window appears where you can capture all of the information for this item, including the image. And then once you select save, then it automatically downloads that chair right into the program and creates a new item for you, which is great, with the image attached, which is wonderful. So once you start entering your items, then it's very easy to generate the paperwork you need to do to either the client or the vendor. So basically then, when the time comes, you're just selecting your entries here on the left by checking them off, and then you're selecting the button to either create the proposal or create the purchase orders or create the final invoice to the client. So one of the nice things also about Studio is I can very quickly see on this screen where I'm at with my paperwork to the client or the vendor. So notice here the chandelier that I've entered, you will notice in the proposal column, if there's a number attached, that means I've done the proposal to the client for this item. Same thing in the purchase order column. If there's a number attached, I've done the PO to the vendor for this item. And same in the invoice column, the final invoice to the client for the balance due. So just visually, I can see where I'm at. So here's an example of a proposal that I've done with 2 items on it that I could then email over to the client. And typically at the proposal level, you're requesting a deposit, whether it's a 50% deposit or 100% deposit, or maybe there's times you don't request a deposit at all. Studio is flexible enough to do whatever you need to do at the proposal level. And here's an example of the purchase order that we would then send over to the vendor, which is great. So it's all about entering those items, like I said, and then you're just basically just clicking buttons to do the paperwork you need to do to either the client or the vendor. Another nice tool or feature that we offer is what we call the client portal. And what that is once you start creating items for your project, then you have the option to send your client an invite to their portal. So let's go back to projects. And this time I'm going to select Client Portal, and I can actually log in as my client to see what she would see. So this is what my client would see when she logged into her portal. So notice here you have items, proposals, and invoices. Initially, what she's seen is all the items by room with pricing details. My client could also select proposals here on the left. So here's all the proposals I've sent her, showing which has a deposit balance. And then here are all the invoices I've sent her, showing which ones have a balance due. So this is a nice feature where if you invite your clients, the client can log in at any point and they can see what they've paid and what they owe you. And we've also partnered with Stripe. So if you want to accept ACH or credit card payments, you could do that through here as well, which is wonderful. So let's go back to projects here on the left. And this time I would like to discuss activities. And what activities are is basically your to-do list and reminders and follow-up. And that can mean whatever you like. And not only can those activities be for yourself, but you can send activities back and forth to each other in the office. And if you have an employee that's always responsible for a specific type of activity, you can auto-assign that activity to that employee, which is great. And you can also attach follow-up reminders to your items, and then there would be a link to that item to follow up on whatever needs to happen for that item. So going back to projects here on the left, this time I'm going to select time billing. So this is where we are entering our hours, both billable and non-billable hours, and then we can invoice our clients. This is also where you can invoice your clients for miscellaneous things that are not furnishings or merchandise, things that don't require a proposal or purchase order. Things like reimbursable expenses could be invoiced through here, or a flat rate design fee could be invoiced through here. So I tend to think of the time billing module as basically a straight invoicing module to the client for things that aren't furnishings and merchandise. Okay, so we also have a fully integrated general ledger accounting system. So the idea with Studio is all money coming in from clients would be posted through Money In. All money going out as far as paying purchase orders and overhead office expenses would be done through Money Out. You should reconcile your bank and credit card payments or statements, sorry. And then you should be able to produce all of your financial statements for your accountant. So speaking of reports, down here on the bottom here are all the standard reports that come with Studio Designer. And there's many different ways that you can pull reports. There's so many reports set up for you. You can filter and sort, and you can also heart your favorite reports, and then you can show your favorites. So here's all my favorite reports that I have hearted. So maybe I would like to see a project worksheet profit report, and I would like to see that for my Andrews project. So I can very quickly see that at this point for this job, I'm making a profit of $32,000 for this job, which is great. So again, there's so many different ways to pull reports depending on what you're looking for. And not only that, we do include a custom report builder with the program. So if you would like to customize your own reports, you can do that as well. Okay, let's see here. I think that was about it. I know I'm probably running out of time here. So just so everyone is aware, I do host a live demonstration every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Pacific time. So if you go to our website, studiodesigner.com, you can sign up for or register for the demo there. If the Tuesday demo doesn't work for you and you prefer a private demo, you can email me at info@studiodesigner.com. That email comes directly to me. And if you have any other questions in general, just feel free to reach out and email me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. So thank you for allowing me to present Studio Designer today to you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you want to, please put your contact information in chat for everybody. That'd be wonderful.
Sure.
It does look like we do have a question that Beth would like you to show a spec sheet. Is that what I read? Can you show us?
Sure.
We do have about a couple more minutes, so that's fine.
Oh, good. Perfect. Let me just type that contact information. I'm typing both the info and my direct email, which is Chris@StudioDesigner. So I will send that to everyone, I hope. Let's see here. Does that go? There we go. Okay. I think it went through. There we go. Yes. So let me share my screen again, and let's see here. We'll go back to spec sheets. So let's go back to the items. So it's all about items in Studio Designer. So over here on the right side of the screen, you will notice an icon for spec. So those are the specifications. And we have many specifications set up for you already that you can scroll through. And if we don't have a spec sheet set up for you that you prefer, again, using that custom report builder, you can customize your own specifications if needed. Or if we have one that's very similar to what you need, but you need some more details, then that custom report builder would come in very handy. Okay. Any other questions for me?
See, there's one other one. Does Studio Designer link to QuickBooks Online? And are there any other accounting features it does not support? Sales tax, employment taxes, etc.?
Designer does not communicate with QuickBooks in any way because we have our own fully integrated accounting system, General Ledger. So the idea is to do Studio Designer for all of your accounting needs. And the only thing that we do not offer that I get a lot of questions about is we do not offer a payroll module. Most designers will use a payroll service or they'll use QuickBooks for payroll. And then when payroll happens, they will post those payroll entries into Studio Designer, either through journal entries. You can even set up reoccurring journal entries or manual check entries to account for their cash balance. But everything else should be flowing through Studio as far as the accounting. And you should be able to produce all of your financial statements for your accountant, as well as all your sales tax reports. So going back to the report section, you will notice here that you have your balance sheet and income statement and journals and general ledger reports, all of your sub ledger reports, and your sales tax reports as well.
Okay, we have about 2 more minutes left for our next speaker. There's a couple more questions. I don't know if you're going to have a chance to answer them.
Okay.
Maybe answer them in chat, but there has been a request to show a presentation. I think that was.
I think they may be looking for a mood board type feature rather than, I did show the client portal, and that would probably be the closest option right now that we have. But the mood board feature is definitely something that's on our radar as far as our development team. So we are hoping that that mood board feature is coming soon.
Okay. And then I don't know if we have time for Beth. Maybe you can connect, and she wants to show the sales tax process. That might take more.
That would be getting into a little bit more details. If you want to email me, we can connect, and then we could even do a longer demonstration. So this was more of an abbreviated demo today, but I'd be happy to schedule a more in-depth demo with you.
Okay, final quick question is, someone has been waiting for time billing to be connected to the Outlook calendar. Is that something that is coming?
That I don't know. If you're a current subscriber, here at the top of the screen, you have your support icon, and you can live chat with our support team, or you can email support and ask about that if you are a current subscriber. If you're not a current subscriber, just go ahead and email me and we can talk more.
Okay, wonderful. So you already put your information. Yeah, Christine put her information in here.
Yes.
Yeah, so for those of you who didn't have their questions answered, please email her and she'll be more than happy to answer those for you on a one-on-one basis. Perfect. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun. Thank you.
Great. So our final speaker and topic is about taxes and AB5, and we are so pleased to have Braden Drake with us. Braden is a California licensed attorney and tax professional. His tagline is your gay best friend here to help you get your legal and tax shit legit. I don't know if I said that with enough panache, but you can repeat that when you come on. That'd be great. Braden works primarily with service-based creative small business owners through his courses where he educates on contracts, business entities, cash flow, systems, and taxes. And I know he's got a book out, right? So welcome, Braden, and have at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. Yes, I do have a book out. This is your warning for swear words, but this is my book. You can find it online. I'll link it later if you have questions. But Katey, can you let me know what my time frame is for this, just so I know that I'm on track and I don't talk too long about any one thing?
You have until 3:05. You have about 40 minutes.
Okay, cool. So I am going to ask everyone to come on camera. I won't make you if you're like at home and in your pajamas and you really don't want to. I won't make you, but I would encourage you all to come on camera. I'm currently sitting in about an 84-degree home office. It's not air conditioned, so I'm getting a little sleepy. I need the energy and to see some bright and shining faces. This also helps me gauge when people are like getting too bored, and I can move topics and all that kind of stuff. So welcome everyone. Thank you for a few of you coming on camera. I appreciate it. What we're gonna be talking about today is this fun law called AB5. So I would love it if you all would just comment in the chat box. Have you heard of AB5? Do you know what it is? Are you familiar with it? Have you heard of it? Let me know. Okay, Jessica said no. You guys are in for, I wouldn't call it a treat, but we're gonna go through it. Okay, so lots of notes. Okay, Julie said yes for my podcast. Awesome, Julie. So you got a little bit of a head start. AB5, I'm calling it the actual worst law. You'll find out why soon. This is not something we're here to celebrate. It's something that we're here to help figure out, to make sure that any of you aren't going to get yourself in a legal pickle. So the interior design edition. Okay. So quick note, I am an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. This is your legal disclaimer. If you would like for me to be your attorney, we can chat about that later. Consider this presentation to be general educational guidance and not individual legal advice. Another note, I do not consider myself to be an employment attorney. I actually am a tax attorney, but this law that we're going to talk about is it's been very impactful in my industry, so I've done my best to get up to speed with it. Basically, the question today is going to be whether you can hire independent contractors in your business. And if the answer to that question is no, then you're going to want to work with an employment attorney to potentially be hiring employees. Okay. All right. So a little bit about me, my favorite topic. It's kind of a joke, but not really a joke. I am a lawyer, like I mentioned. I also have a master's degree in tax law, which is why there's a little bit of different topics that I teach on. I also am currently training for my 4th Ironman triathlon. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see me running a lot down here in San Diego. I have 3 dogs, collect cookware, and this is my handsome husband, Leonard. He is the hate crimes prosecutor for San Diego County at our DA's office. So his job tends to be a little bit more exciting at dinner parties. People always want to talk to him about the cases he's doing. I also love design. So I don't share the same skill set that you all have, but I did actually work at a West Elm store for 2 years when I was starting my business. My favorite store is CB2. I don't really do like anything custom like you all probably do for your clients, but that's my favorite place to go and shop. We bought a house a few months ago, which has been really exciting because it means that I've been able to paint and decorate and all that kind of stuff. So fun. I thought I'd show some design pictures because why not, if you would call this design. My husband thought I was crazy when I wanted to paint our fireplace black, but I think it looked great. Let me know. Tell me in the comments. And I also want to say that I know that your job from the outside, it looks really glamorous, I would imagine, to a lot of people, right? But there's a lot of labor involved. And also there is a lot of paperwork involved, which is why I always joke, as much as I love HGTV, I don't think I could be a designer just for the sheer volume of receipts. So I sympathize with you when it comes to the back end management of your business. I'd also like to note, if you all have any questions throughout this presentation, please put it in the chat box, or even feel free to unmute yourself and ask yourself a question. I want to make this more interactive. It will make it less dry and boring, because I do apologize, this is a dry and boring topic already. So if we can spice it up a little bit, that would be great. So a brief history of what we're talking about. Back in 2018, there was a California State Supreme Court case called Dynamex that essentially changed the test that we use in California for determining whether someone is an employee or an independent contractor. And this is very important because a lot of us think if we hire an independent contractor, we call them an independent contractor, we give them an independent contractor agreement, and they agree with that contract, then we're good to go. But that's not the case. It's this weird area of the law where you cannot agree to that kind of working relationship. It's actually based on the facts and circumstances of what this person is doing for you. So we had an old set of laws. This case brought a new set of laws. And then at the beginning of last year, our state legislature expanded basically the degree and scope of the test provided under that case to all areas of employment law here in California. So is it as easy as ABC? Not quite. So this is the primary test that we use now in California for determining whether someone working for you and with you is an employee or independent contractor. And in order for them to be an independent contractor, you must meet 3 requirements. And we call this the ABC test. So there's parts A, B, and C. So part A says the worker must be free from the control and direction of the hirer. If you've ever looked into independent contractor law, this one is pretty standard. We have this really in every test. So it means that you can't like micromanage them. You can't tell them like everything they have to be doing. You can't control all elements of their work. I'm going to skip B. We're going to get to that in a second. Part C says the worker must be customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as the work performed for the hiring entity. So in short, this means if you hire like a web designer to redo your website, they should be in business as a web designer. They should be doing that for other clients. That's how you meet this requirement. Oftentimes, A and C are going to be okay. For you all, I would imagine in a design space, C could be a problem. So we can talk about that more if you have questions. But our really big problem is typically part B, which is why I left it for last. And part B says the worker must perform work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. So you might be thinking, okay, Braden, what the hell does that actually mean? Well, really what it means is that I, as an attorney, theoretically couldn't hire another attorney to be a contractor. Of course, attorneys got exempted from this law because they wrote it, right? That's how it tends to work. But if you're a photographer, you can't hire another photographer to be a contractor in your business. A designer can't hire another designer. But you might be thinking, well, a lot of I'm not hiring a designer, I'm hiring, an assistant, or I'm hiring someone to do this. Well, then we really have to analyze what is something that's outside of the usual course of your business. It's a nuance. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of detail on that yet. The way the law works is people file lawsuits, they go up the court system, and those cases develop the law. So when we have new laws, we're a little bit in the dark. Okay, Marlene says, does CAD work qualify? Let me know what that acronym stands for. I don't do that myself. I hand draft. So we'll have to talk about it.
It's CAD. It's someone who's does the schematics or drawings for the layout for a designer for their projects. So not everybody.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you would say this would be a case-by-case thing, right? So if this isn't something that you do in your business, if it's not a usual course for your business and you hire that out for every single project, then I would say you would probably meet part B. But I don't want to give really blanket statements. I'm curious. And this is something that the rest of you could also answer in the comments. Is that something that a typical interior designer would do? Is it something that you're outsourcing just so that you have more time, or is it something that you don't typically handle in your business?
Jessica, why don't you answer that? Because you do outsource some of that work, right, to Dalia, and we talked about that a little bit.
Yes, I outsource certain CAD to Dalia and certain CAD to another company called Palmer Designs. And because I don't do any in-house CAD work. I know how to do it. I was educated in it, but I don't practice it on the daily, so I outsource it.
And those are two independent contractors, correct?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, so that's really helpful. I think that's, pretty good guidance there. Okay, so it's a burden. What does this mean? Well, this test is also a burden shifting test. This slide, if you read the slide, this should scare you a little bit. The way this test works is under old independent contractor law, it was the burden of proof for a contractor to prove they're an employee. So we've all heard, I'm sure you've all heard in criminal law that if someone is to be found guilty in court, they have to be found under the preponderance of the evidence to be guilty. Have you all heard that before? Yes. Well, it's the prosecutor's burden to prove that. The prosecutor has to prove it. If they don't prove it, then that person is not found guilty, right? So we kind of understand that. That's why the defense attorney doesn't really have to prove anything. They just have to poke holes in the arguments. So this is how burden tests work under the law. Under our old law, I said the burden was on the contractor to show they were the employee. If they're going to sue you, claiming that they should get employment benefits, if the state is going to audit you, go through any process like that, it would be their burden as well. But under the ABC test, the burden shifts. So if you have any kind of legal problem, now as the employer or the hiring entity, that's the language we typically use, it would be your responsibility to prove that the person you're hiring, I call this person the worker to use neutral language, meets the ABC test or one of the exceptions under this law in order to be deemed an independent contractor. So it puts more of the onus on this. Okay. So Beth says, what about Jessica's outsourcing company design assistant? Would they be considered an employee under this new law? They work for many different interior designers, but do all the same things. So I don't want to give any like too much like very, very personal guidance on this chat, but what we can do is we can chat about it a little bit at the end as well. And I will tell you all before we get too deep here that with everything, this is information that you need to weigh, right? If you're going to decide, do I need to hire an employee? You're going to look at the risks involved and like whether you think it's going to be a problem down the road. Some people determine that they're in a gray area with their contractors and they say, you know what, I'm not that worried about it. I'm going to continue as I am. That's up to you. As an attorney, it's always our job to bring you, the letter of the law, right? Okay, so our framework. The first question whenever you're hiring someone is to ask, does this worker meet prongs A, B, and C of the ABC test? So this is our prong. Really simple example here. I said a graphic designer or web designer earlier. You hire someone to do design work for you. You're an interior designer, not a web designer. It's pretty clear that they meet parts A, B, and C, not a problem, okay? Unless you like run a big company and they're working for you full-time in-house, different story. But there are carve-outs and exceptions to this law. There are industry exemptions, professional service exemptions, and something they call the business-to-business exception. So we're going to go through these. I'm going to kind of skip through some of them that aren't as pertinent to your specific industry. So this looks a little overwhelming on a slide, but I made a flow chart because I love a good flow chart. It's on a free download I have on my website. I will hyperlink it for you all at the end if you want to go download it. But you can find most of this information in my blog post on my website, which I will put right there. So you can all pull that up if you want to save it for later, and you can download this there as well. So first, we're going to ask if a contractor meets the ABC test. If they don't, we're going to look at some of the exceptions that our legislature wrote into this law. And the first of these are industry exemptions. So this should not apply to all of you. Unfortunately, it applies to podiatrists, surgeons, physicians, veterinarians, these typical kind of license holders. So they all got exempted from the law altogether. The next step is we look at professional service exceptions. And again, I've done kind of the grunt work of seeing if any of these apply to you. And unfortunately, interior design right now doesn't fall into one of the professional service exceptions under the law. So we kind of skip that one as well. So basically, if someone you're hiring fails the ABC test, then at this point, based on what I found in the law, your only avenue to kind of get around that is by using something that we call the business to business exception under the law. So if you're a business owner hiring another business owner, then we're going to look at each of these requirements. Okay, before I go into all of those, are you all with me so far? Because I know this is like very complex information. You with me so far?
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Okay.
I'm all what? Yeah, cool.
Okay, cool. Erica says yes. All right.
We're good.
So, and hopefully you don't mind me skipping like 10 of those slides. We can go back to them if you want to, but this presentation I developed when I'm speaking to like a broader swath of industries. We kind of have to go through all of these. I'm skipping the irrelevant information for you. All right, Marlene, I got you. I do talk very fast, so we'll slow down a little bit. Okay. So the business to business exception, it says that the holding of Dynamex does not apply to business contracting relationships as defined below. So in short, it's that this translated means that the ABC test is inapplicable if you meet these requirements as described in the law. If a business entity formed as a sole prop, a partnership, an LLC, an LLP, or corporation contracts to provide services to another such business, that's the contracting business, the determination of employee or independent contractor status of the business's service as the business service provider shall be governed by Borello. So those are our old requirements. We can talk more about those later, but all this slide is telling you, if you meet the following requirements, there are 11 of them that we're going to go through, then you can get the business to business exception to be exempted from AB5. Okay. This is where the fun starts. So these are our business to business exception requirements. So A, the business service provider. So this would be the worker that you're hiring. We don't call them a contractor because that's really our question, right? Whether they are a contractor. So the worker is free from the control and direction of the contracting business entity in connection with the performance of the work, both under the contract for the performance of the work and in fact. There's a lot of legal jargon there, but basically you shouldn't be controlling every element of their work. We can talk a little bit more about what that could look like depending on the type of worker. B, the business service provider is providing services directly to the contracting business rather than to customers of the contracting business. So this is a really weird one. Like, I'm wondering if we had more time, I would go around in a circle and ask you all what you thought this prong was saying. Because us attorneys don't have any like magical translation skills. Like, this is the letter of the law and everyone kind of reads this a little bit differently. I'll give you an example of where this is a problem though. So I work with a lot of wedding professionals. And one example I had, and this is something I actually argued on Twitter about with the author of this law. She's an assemblywoman that represents a district here in San Diego. I put screenshots of those tweets in my blog if you want to go look at them. But I told her this is really problematic because if let's say that you're getting married and you hire a photographer, and that photographer is going to have a second photographer come and work with them. Well, the photographer is taking photos of you, the client, right? But they're going to give the photos to the other photographer. So who are they providing services to? It's a little bit gray, right? An even bigger issue, I said, would be hair and makeup artists. Because let's say that you have a bridal party of 10 people and they hire 2 assistants. Well, if the contractor you hired is literally doing hair and makeup on a member of the bridal party, it would be hard for them to argue that they're not providing services directly to the customer and not the hiring business. Luckily for them, for the wedding industry, they got an exception under new amendments to this law, but we don't have that for interior design yet that I've seen. So part B could be an issue or requirement B. C, the contract with the business service provider is in writing. This one's easy. You should have an independent contractor agreement with every single contractor you hire. If you don't have that, that's an easy fix, right? Okay, any questions on those 3 before we move forward? Well, where'd my chat box go? Let me try to find it. There we go. Okay. Okay, we'll go back if we have some more. All right, so D, if the work is performed in a jurisdiction that requires the business service provider, I'll say the worker, to have a business license or business tax registration, the worker should have that required license. So this one's pretty straightforward as well. Pretty much every city in the state of California requires a business license, or in San Diego, they call it a business tax certificate. So anyone that you're hiring should have that as required by their local city. I even tell all of my students to actually ask for a copy of that when they're hiring contractors. So send them a contractor agreement, get their W-9 and ask for a copy of their business license and their insurance, ideally, all of those things before you agree to work with them. E, the business service provider maintains a business location that is separate from the business or work location of the contracting business. This is also a little bit vague, but we do have some hints and other exceptions that home offices are fine. So really you're okay with this one, probably so long as they're not coming into your office, wherever your office is, to complete their work every day. Like the whole point of the business to business exception is that they run their own business, they're independent from you, so they shouldn't be sharing your office. And you'll see a lot of this comes down to whether they're truly like a separate business from you. F, the business service provider is customarily engaged in an independently established business of the same nature as that involved in the work performed. So F is actually the same as our C requirement from the ABC test. And if you noticed, our first requirement under the B2B exception was basically the same as part A of the ABC test. So if we go all the way back to the beginning of this presentation, I told you our real issue is part B. So really what this exception does is if you meet all 11 requirements, it lets you get around that part B part, the core service part. Okay. Julie said, what if occasionally they come into the office? This is a good question. So let's reread it with that context. The business service provider maintains a business location that is separate from the business or work location of the contracting business. All right, a business location that's separate from the business. What the hell does this mean? we don't really know. This is all they give us, right? So, I mean, someone could argue that they have a separate business location that's their home office, even if they literally never worked in there. I wouldn't advise that. I'd be like a little bit more careful, but they have to have a business license, right? So I would look at what's the address on their business license. Is that their home office? Did they at least like have a desk in there? If you wanted to get really into the weeds, we could look at this kind of stuff. But sure, if they want to come to your office for meetings and stuff, I don't think that that would be a particular problem. Okay, so G, the business service provider actually contracts with other businesses to provide the same or similar services and maintains a clientele without restrictions from the hiring entity. So they can't really exclusively work for you, or at least you can't require that they exclusively work for you. They have to be able to have their own other clients and market themselves. H, the business service provider advertises and holds itself out to the public as available to provide the same or similar services. So again, we don't have a lot of detail here. It's not saying that they need to be paying for ads, but at a minimum, if you're hiring someone under the business to business exception, I would look and ask, do they have a website? Or if they don't have a website, do they work primarily off referral and at least have like maybe business cards or like a social media presence for their business? These are things you can look at. I, the business service provider, provides its own tools, vehicles, and equipment to perform the services. So you don't want to give them like all the tools that they need to perform their job. Like they should, have their own laptop, insert whatever other design tools they need, like a tape measure. Don't give them a tape measure. They should have their own tape measure. They're like really, really simple stuff. If they come to your office and, they like forgot something at home, it's probably fine, but you don't want to buy all this stuff for them. Okay. And then J, the business service provider can negotiate its own rates. This one also pretty vague. Like, what does this mean? Really, what I've been telling people is that you shouldn't just dole out like a set rate for everyone. So say I need people to fill this role and it pays $50 an hour, no negotiation whatsoever. Like the rate should be negotiated based on, their experience, their expertise, all that kind of stuff. I've even recommended people that if you are going to have any kind of payment discussions, if those happen via email, screenshot them, save them, and then that way you at least have a record that there was some sort of good faith negotiation happening. Okay, last one. Consistent with the nature of the work, the business service provider can set its own hours and location of the work. I think this is the only one they were a little bit nice on, due to the language consistent with the nature of the work. So again, I told you all that I work in the wedding industry a lot. People there are often worried about, well, if I have my wedding planning assistant and I tell them that they have to be there from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. for the wedding, is that okay? And I say, yes, because you're hiring them to help you with an event. The event has a set date and location. But if you're hiring someone to do computer work for you, it doesn't matter if that work gets done at 2 a.m. so long as it's done by the due date that you give them. No. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking at with this requirement. Okay. So back to our framework. All right. So we're going to kind of skip through the Borello factors. Honestly, at this point, if you've been working with contractors for a long time, and people have told you, well, just make sure that you don't like give them set hours and have them clock in and supply all the tools, you're probably going to be okay under the old law. So really, I just want you to worry about the ABC test. So important next steps, make sure that your team is in the proper roles. So analyze everyone that's working with you, onboard them correctly. I know that you all had a talk earlier about hiring employees. I didn't make it to that one, so I'm not sure what all the details were, but hiring employees isn't nearly as scary as it sounds. It may cost you a little bit more. It may not, depending on how you want to structure the pay. I think there are a lot of benefits to using employees. It all depends, right? But don't get too scared if you think that you might need to hire some people. Make sure you use great contracts. So have an independent contractor agreement. It's very important. And then of course, make sure that all of your legalities are in place. So I teach a concept called the layers of protection, how you have all these different kind of legalities that layer on like layers of clothing to protect you from the elements, like from the cold, right? So your important layers are contracts, your LLC, and insurance. If you don't already have an LLC or an S Corp, I think that's very important, as well as your insurance policies. So those are great next steps. So learn more. I linked it in the chat box, but bradendrake.com/AB5. And then do yourself a favor, give yourself a hair toss because you made it all the way through that complicated presentation. Please give me a follow at Braden Adam Drake on Instagram. I would love that. Post a story and tag me because I also would love the attention and the followers. That would be great. And if you have any questions or if you want to work with me, you can also email me. So if you have any questions now, I'm happy to dig into those.
We have a comment from Julia that she was involved in a lawsuit. I don't know if she wants to expand on that to the group. We still have at least 9 minutes.
Yeah, this was a long time ago. I worked on a horse farm and she did not have workers' comp insurance and I was injured. And the crux of the lawsuit was determining whether or not I was employed or an independent contractor. So
yes.
I do remember I had constant direction. I had to be there a certain amount of time. I couldn't leave until my work was finished. And so, yeah.
And this is a pretty common example because I think a lot of the time we think this is only going to be an issue if we get into like a tax audit can actually trigger problems with this if you're not, because what the state does is they're going to basically audit you and say, we think you were their employer, so we want you to pay all the payroll taxes. Because in short, it's a lot easier for the state and for the IRS to collect from businesses than it is to collect from contractors, 1099 contractors who don't report their income. The other place where this becomes an issue is when you have people who frankly just have a beef with you. If relationships fall apart, they go to an attorney and an attorney is going to say employment law is where we're really going to get you a good settlement from this. But oftentimes it's not necessarily malicious. So Julie, in your case, you're like, I'm injured because of my job. I want to be compensated. I want to make sure that my healthcare is covered. And if I'm an employee, then I'm covered by workers' comp insurance. And if I'm a contractor, I'm not. So that's something like my rights that I want to go after. Last year, where this became a really big problem, was that so many people were filing unemployment claims due to COVID because they couldn't work. The businesses weren't making money. You all kind of had the opposite problem. You got a lot busier, which was interesting. I told you with the wedding people, that was a disaster. But what was happening is that people weren't able to work and then they were filing unemployment claims. And when you file an unemployment claim, you have to state who your employer was. Well, now we have all these independent contractors saying, my employer is so-and-so. And now the state's going to say, oh, interesting, because that person's never registered you as an employee. We've never received any payroll taxes from that company. Let's also look into that while we're here. So this is how these kind of things can become an issue, if any of you are wondering.
Cost her a lot of money.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I'm sure it did. And a lot of you, I know a lot of you said you weren't familiar with AB 5, but if you remember when we all voted in November for Prop 22, that was the whole Uber Lyft proposition. Do you all remember that? That proposition, specifically, we were voting on whether they should be exempted from AB 5, and they won that vote. So Uber and Lyft no longer has to deal with this. And that they actually, a lot of people think that AB 5 was created specifically so that Uber and Lyft and large companies like them would have to classify all their drivers as employees. That would give more money to the state. They, of course, have a ton of money. They got out of it. But it's been a disaster. If you all want to learn a little bit more about this, there is a really large Facebook group called Freelancers Against AB 5. It's very active. I'm a member of that. But I think they're still actually like writing amendments to this law. They've like done a few different drafts of amendments.
As usual.
Yes, as usual. Well, it was like really half-assed when they first like drafted the thing. It's like a hot mess. When we look at the professional services exemption, one of the professional services that are exempted is graphic design. Like all it says is graphic design. And then the next line says like, I think then they have one for booth renters and salons. And for them, they give like a whole bunch of information on specifically who's exempted. So the information is just, it's a mess, to be honest.
Still, thank you so much for trying to break it down as best as you can.
Yes.
In a short amount of time.
Yeah, and if any of you thought this was a buzzkill, I would like to say, don't blame me. I was going to talk to you all about paying quarterly taxes and getting LLCs. And I think Julie's the one who specifically asked me to present on this. So.
Well, at our last board meeting, I was telling them about, AB5 but I was gonna have you talk on, speak on taxes. And it was pretty unanimous. Everybody was like, what is AB5? So yeah, and I didn't really even think about it until I was listening to your podcast. So, and you should share your podcast because it's fabulous.
Oh yeah, I'll put it.
Yeah. I don't think many of us have had tax or legal advice presented in such a fun way. So I enjoyed your entire presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So my podcast, again, swear warning, my podcast is called Unfuck Your Biz with Braden, asterisk for the U. So if you go look into your podcast app, you will find it. But we also have all the episodes on my website. So if you go to my website, I have a bunch of freebies. I have contract templates. If you already have contractors and you do not have a contractor agreement, please go buy my template. It will help you, I promise.
And your book is fabulous and you make it fun. So hard.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm gonna hire you as a sales rep to sell all of my stuff. And go get a copy, unfuckyourbizbook.com. I appreciate it.
And we read it in Rick Campus's his book club. So
yes. Nice. Well, I think I'm going to drive up to the happy hour tomorrow. Hopefully Rick will be there. I haven't seen him since his retreat last year.
We'll love it. I'll text him.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Braden.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So Braden was our final speaker. I'm going to encourage everybody to go to the website and check out all of our sponsors and all the wonderful companies again who have participated in the Expo. They have some wonderful videos and links to their products. And as a thank you, we'd really appreciate it if you go and check those out. Julia, do you have any final comments, or are we good?
No, just tomorrow we have more speakers from 1 to 3. And actually, I think we'll be a little early tomorrow, but yeah, tune in tomorrow. We've got more speakers. So, and thank you to everybody who spoke today.
And we hope to see everybody.
Thank you, Katey.
You're welcome at that final closing party where we'll meet Braden and he can talk us more about, wonderful tax. And hopefully
love it.
There. Thank you again so much. Really appreciate the time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.